Mayor, you are live now.
Hello, everybody. We're trying to keep up our record and start on time. So it is 8:01, I believe, and we'll get going with the meeting. First of all, on behalf of the entire council, I'd like to extend our condolences to Anthony Housefather, who lost his father yesterday. And so our sincerest condolences to our Member of Parliament, Anthony Housefather. Okay, we'll start with the public question period. And there was one question sent in prior to earlier this week to our town clerk. And I don't have it in front of me, but I do remember what it's about. And basically, the question came from Mark Hornstein, and the issue was the Ellerdale is in terrible condition. People are ruining their cars driving over it. We patch it, but it's not good enough. What can be done to fix Ellerdale properly? And this has been brought up many times in the past. It was even written about in the Suburban in the past. The issue is that under Ellerdale, there is a very large water main. It's owned by the agglomeration, which basically means Montreal. And it's 65, maybe now 70 years old. There's a real danger that the vibrations from fixing the road properly could easily cause the water main to break. We have asked Montreal to absolve us from any liability should the water main break. If they would do that, we would fix the road. But Montreal, of course, won't do that. So we have asked Montreal in the past, and we're continuing to go after them and try to get them to fix the water main so that we can fix the road. It's a road that's used not just by Hampstead residents. In fact, I would say the majority of residents using it are going from the Carry Expressway to Côte St. Luc to NDG. That's where you get the majority of traffic. It's not even Hampstead residents. And that's where most of the people are ruining their cars. So for the sake of the residents of Montreal and Côte St. Luc, I appeal to the agglomeration of Montreal to please fix the water main. So that's the issue. Hampstead cannot take a chance and do the proper work on Ellerdale, because it would be millions, and I mean many millions of dollars of damage should that water main break, and we can't afford to cover that. So that's why we're not doing it. We're constantly going after Montreal and asking them to do the right thing. Now, if they don't, well, sooner or later the water main's going to break anyway, and then it'll have to be repaired by Montreal, by the agglomeration. I'd much rather they did it now. It makes far more sense. And then we will, with Montreal, repair the road properly, and it'll be good once more. Okay, that's everything I can say on that particular issue. And now, do we have, let me see if I can find the questions. 1 second. Okay, let me see. So we have 4 questions here.
Not really. It's only two lead-ins, but it's just 2 questions.
Okay, 2 questions.
Oh, now a 3rd question at 8:05.
Okay, the first question I see here from Morton Grosstern. He says, currently there are 2 major renovations on Côte St. Luc Road, one at 6191 Côte St. Luc Road, and the other at 5785 Côte St. Luc Road, both done since last year's referendum, where the project to demolish and then build a high-rise building was denied. Are these 2 renovations both done by smart, capable developers in the best interest of Hampstead? Why? That's a strange question. What's going on? I mean, I'm going to let the listener decide whether these are smart, capable developers. I'm certainly not going to comment on that, but I can give you the backstory, what I know. For 6191 Côte St. Luc Road, I guess at least 2 years ago, maybe 2.5, they came to us and they wanted to do major renovations to the building. And we gave them permission, and they got rid of all their tenants. And so the building was vacant. Then they came back with, they had some other renovations, and PAC looked at it, we approved it. And then a third time, same thing, we approved it. Then they heard about the possibility of demolishing the building and building a higher building. So they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to demolish the building and build a higher building. And they came up with a project that was actually 12 stories. And the PAC looked at it and for a variety of good reasons said, nah, this is not going to fly. This has all kinds of serious problems. So they went back to the drawing board and they decided, now we'll go back to renovating again. And they came to us with some proposals. And then we approved them, and then more changes, and we approved them. And this has gone on for a very, very long time. And currently, the work has been stopped. And the reason the work has been stopped is because they're doing things that were not in a permit. Now, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're building a house or you're building an apartment building, you have to follow the permit. You get a permit, you want to follow the permit. Well, they weren't. So the work was stopped. It is stopped now. And we told them, please come to us with one final set of plans. Tell us everything you want to do, not piecemeal. Give us the whole story. The PAC will look at it. We'll see whether we agree or not. We also told them they have to follow all our rules. So we're hoping that they will do that, and then we will see what happens. The other one, 5785 Côte St. Luc Road, I believe that is the boarded up building. They came to us and they said they wanted to make some minor changes. They wanted to put some additional apartments in the basement, but there were problems with that, and that's not going to fly. It's violating various building code standards, something like that. So at the moment, we're waiting for them to come back to us, but their plan to do that minor work is not going to work, so nothing is happening over there. And that's the whole story. I can't be more transparent. I can't give you more information than that. Okay, moving on. Morton Grostern has another question. Under item 6.1, there's an audit by the Quebec government agency. What is this about? What action plan was derived from this audit? Will the audit report and action plan be posted on the town's webpage so any interested resident can review it? I don't know. Council can consider putting the report. Basically, what this is about is the Quebec government is auditing different municipalities, and Hampstead happened to be one of the first 5 that they chose to do an audit of. And so they came in and they spent, I think, several months, well, a few months at any rate, asking a lot of questions, getting a lot of information about how urban planning is done in Hampstead. And at the end of the day, they came up with a report. That report was presented to council, and we thank them for the report, and we've already implemented many of the suggestions they made, and we are continuing to implement additional suggestions. Beyond that, I can't comment at this point on whether the report will be made public. I'm not even sure if we're allowed to make it public. It's a Quebec government audit report, and I don't know if it can be made public at this time. I vaguely remember that we're not allowed to do it. But I can tell you that the government has accepted our action plan, and we're implementing it, and that's what this resolution is about.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, if you'd like, I can give some details on what our action plan includes. Very basic stuff, but at least to give some context to the residents.
Sure, please.
So as the mayor mentioned, we did have this audit, which I think was really well received, and it was just a very basic review of the urban planning process throughout the town, and specifically the way in which we go about issuing permits, analyzing permits, criteria related to it, and going through the whole approval process. So some of the things that they are recommending, which our action plan includes, is producing brochures for residents, having online brochures and brochures presence and information physically at City Hall, having online applications of permits, having a tariff schedule easily posted, how much permits and the tariffs related to each project will cost, the rules and delays related to permit applications, electronic and physical brochures, like I mentioned earlier, elaboration of checklists for documents that will be required for submission when residents are applying for permits, the detailed grid and checklist, analysis and checklists for staff for evaluation, the way that the staff should be evaluating criteria, internal checklists for them, as well as integration of inspection timetables and reports into the internal calendar systems. So for example, if a resident applies for a permit is issued, it will automatically be included into the staff system when they should be following up and going for inspections. As well, there's a few minor things regarding the checklist for residents, like I said, when they're submitting information, as well as to inform citizens of the vision and the criteria that we're looking for when evaluating permits and applications. So it's a very broad overview, but that should just give the residents some sort of baseline indication of what this audit entailed and where we envision taking it in the criteria that we've decided to improve upon as per their recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Butning, and that's a very good summary of the type of very excellent, useful information we got out of the audit. So we are lucky that we were one of the first to benefit from this expertise. Okay, Adriana Decker says, last council meeting, the councillors that voted in favor of the Côte Saint-Luc tax study stated they voted in favor of it because they wanted to have all the possible information about the different options for Côte Saint-Luc Road. My question is, where is the study on the benefits of requiring Côte Saint-Luc Road to have affordable housing? As a rich neighborhood, instead of doing studies to see how much richer we can get, wouldn't it be better to do studies to see how our urban planning can help people who may have lower incomes? Isn't this what TCOM alum is about? We have a unique opportunity to put our money where our mouth is. So what is the council's plan for this? And the honest answer is the council has no plan for this. Montreal has the responsibility for social housing, not Hampstead, not any of the suburbs for that matter. We pay much more than our fair share of taxes to the agglomeration, which includes money for social housing. So that is their responsibility. It's not Hampstead's responsibility. It's not Côte Saint-Luc's responsibility, nor Beaconsfield, nor Westmount, nor any other of the merged suburbs. But we, the merged suburbs, represent about 20% of the money that goes to the agglomeration, even though we're only 13% of the population. So I would argue that we, and especially Hampstead, because of the way the unfair quote-par system works, Hampstead and in particular Beaconsfield are the two towns, I believe, that pay the most per capita to the agglomeration. And certainly both Hampstead, Beaconsfield, and other towns think this is very unfair and there has to be changes. In fact, Beaconsfield has a court case dealing with one aspect of the unfairness. But bottom line, with respect to your question, social housing is the responsibility of the agglomeration, and Montreal basically is the agglomeration since they have the majority of the votes on the agglomeration, and they are the ones who also get money from the Quebec government for social housing and things like that. So that's
one other thing, Bill. We pay $200,000 a year to Montreal for the CMM, which is for social housing. So every year we pay $200,000 towards subsidizing social housing.
Well, you just mentioned the CMM, but there's also the agglomeration.
Right,
pay a
separate
lot
from the
more.
aglo tax.
I'm sorry?
Separate from the aglo tax, we pay $200,000 a year towards the CMM.
Right. Okay, but I'm thinking more of the agglomeration because that's whatever, close to half of Hampstead residents' tax dollars go to the agglomeration. And again, we do not get our fair share of services. Okay, are there more questions?
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, actually, just to follow up, because Adriana Decker just posted, she said, you're not answering my question. I'm asking for a study of how we, Hampstead, have affordable housing in our neighborhood. How can we, Hampstead, have affordable housing?
Again, that is not our mandate. I do not believe that the vast majority of Hampstead residents want us to do such a study. So, sorry.
It's our mandate, if I might. It's our mandate if we decide it's our mandate.
Yeah,
I think we should.
It's not forced on us, but it's our choice to decide whether we want to have some kind of affordable housing option if we choose to do so. It's not outside of our mandate.
No,
There's many third-party organizations, such as so many different organizations in the city that would be glad to give us some presentations and information. I think it's incumbent upon us to listen and to have an open mind.
If anyone comes forward and wants to give us a presentation, of course, we will have an open mind and we will listen to them.
Great.
Okay.
I'll help arrange that.
Okay, moving on. And I don't know if everybody who's listening sees or I'm sure they hear, but I don't know if they see who's talking. That was Councillor Jack Ettery and Councillor Warren Bunting who just made those comments. I thank them. Anonymous, I understand Doris Steinberg and her personal friend Mala are no longer involved with flower and beautification efforts. A very good first step to improve the management of the function. When will the residents be able to see the investigation report that was done by the accountants? Well, I want to correct that. First of all, Mala is not a personal friend of Doris Steinberg. They are friendly, but she's not a personal friend. So that kind of gives the impression that Mala may have been hired for the wrong reasons. As all the councillors know or should know, Mala was hired because she had the best price and the best quality work at a time when numerous possible landscape architects were being considered several years ago. The work that both Mala and my wife Doris have done has been recognized by the organization that ranks the beautification of towns. Hampstead has achieved the highest possible ranking for 5 Florent. Our signs are late in arriving, but they'll be going up soon. And there are only 11 towns in the entire province that have 5 Florent. There are none on the island of Montreal other than Hampstead. So that is a credit to my wife, who is the chief architect of all the beautification efforts, starting in 2008 when Councillor Abe Gonshore started saying, we have to make Hampstead more beautiful. And my wife took all the councillors at the time for a drive to look at some of the other towns on the island of Montreal, and then back to Hampstead where they could see weeds that were 6 feet high and other atrocious things. A Fleet median that was almost all concrete with a few flower pots, a Queen Mary median that had what some people call it cemetery plots, and the town's been transformed like one can't believe. Now, for reasons I'm not going to get into tonight, but I may write something to the whole town to cover this. My wife is no longer taking care of beautification. That was her choice. She resigned following a very obnoxious and quite possibly actionable email that was sent by one councillor that I'm not going to name tonight. And that's why she said, enough. I'm putting in thousands, maybe tens of thousands of hours, making the town more and more beautiful. And I know residents come up to her all the time and thank her for what she's done. But she said, enough, enough. At some point, I may make the email available for the public to read for themselves. Then they can make their own judgments on how helpful that email was. But the bottom line is, my wife has stepped down from her volunteer job, which for anyone who doesn't know, I will remind everyone, she doesn't get paid a penny. She gets no benefits whatsoever from these years and years of hard work. It's shameful that things were done and lack of support by some councillors led to her deciding that she'd had it, she's done, she's out of here. Maybe I can convince her to come back at some future time if things change. So that's the basic answer to that. Next question, Jeremy Levi. Are the results of the audit of the CMQ publicly available? Is the action plan publicly available? I'm not sure what the CMQ is, unless you're talking about the urban planning audit. I guess that's probably what you're talking about. And as I mentioned to the earlier questioner, it's certainly not publicly available. Are we able to put it on our website? I suspect the answer is no, but we can look into whether or not we can. But I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that this is not for the public, it's strictly confidential at the present time. However, Councillor Budning has given you a very good idea of what it's all about. Next, Morton Grostern is back with another question. Can you find out in the Vive if it can be made public? I answered that. Next, Morton Grostern, sorry, the audit report Warren discussed. The audit report, you guys are switching the questions too quickly. The audit report that that was discussed with respect to, I'm not even sure, but at any rate, audit reports are not made public. Therefore, the internal use of the council. Now, Adriana Decker, you're not asking my question. I'm asking for a study of how we, Hampstead, have affordable housing in our neighborhood. And I think I have answered the question. Next, Adriana Decker, and I don't ask for social housing, I ask for affordable housing. Okay, affordable housing. I do not believe that the majority of residents, well, actually, affordable housing, that is sort of a good question. I think right now with house values in Hampstead being, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything much under $1 million, and many houses a lot more. So if you're seniors wanting to downsize, if you're young people wanting to move on your own, you don't have very many options in Hampstead. Yes, you've got some very cheap housing on Côte St. Luc Road, but I don't think there are that many residents who might want to move into that housing. We're missing something that's affordable, but not without an elevator, third or fourth floor walk up, no dishwasher or washing machine or drying machine, smells because the ventilation isn't proper. Now, I don't think there are too many Hampstead residents who want to move into that type of affordable housing. I, on the other hand, would like to have affordable housing, but affordable housing of a certain standard, of a certain quality. I want to see Hampstead quality affordable housing. That's what I want to see, and I think that's what we can get on Côte St. Luc Road. But that's, we'll talk more about that later, and for that matter, I'll give you a heads up. My mayor's message in October, coming out in a week, 2, 3, something like that. Read it. It talks about that as well. Okay, Anonymous, how much per year does this project cost? I'm sorry, I don't know which project we're talking about. Morton Grosthorn, sorry, Westmount has Saint Florent as well. No, Mr. Grosthorn, you're wrong. Westmount does not have Saint Florent. Okay.
Westmount has 4, just for an FYI.
I'm sorry?
Westmount has 4 as an FYI.
Thank you, Councillor Goldwax. They apparently have 4. Okay, and thank you, Councillor Goldwax. I know that that the Waldorf, which Councillor Goldwax manages, Director General, has been awarded for their beautification efforts at the Waldorf. I know that, and they do very well with that. Okay.
Thank you.
And Anonymous, the Flower Project. This is difficult to keep track. I don't know what the whole question is, but anyway, I think I've addressed all the various issues that need to be addressed. So we will now move on to the meeting. So we're at 3.0, which is the adoption of the agenda on motion of Councillor
Goldwax.
Goldwax, seconded by Councillor Wiegensberg. It is resolved that the agenda of the regular meeting is hereby adopted as submitted. Anyone opposed? No. Okay, so we move on. Departmental monthly reports, and we will start with Community Services, Councillor Wiegensberg.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well. Do you hear echo?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would tell you turn off one of your mics and then you'll be able to do it.
I don't know what mic.
Or lower one of your mics, just lower it a little bit.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. Sorry about the echo, and I hope everybody's well and staying safe, especially now with Code Red. My monthly report will be very short because of all that's going on with COVID and the Code Red. So as we all know, the pool has been closed. The tennis courts are there. There's going to be 5 courts that will be staying open till the end of this month. Having said that, there's no lessons allowed. The bathrooms are closed. Everything is going to be closed. There will be a sign-up sheet because we must be able to see who's been playing based upon Quebec rules, but ultimately that's all that there will be. And besides a few Zoom activities that are still going on, or 1 or 2 adult activities outside, such as walking, there are no activities happening in Hampstead at this time, again, because of COVID-19 and Code Red. And that unfortunately includes that this month's Halloween, normally big party that we put on, will not be happening. So there really is nothing much to report except that we're going on, keeping hope that everybody's doing well, and we'll keep you updated as things change. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Wiegensberg. We're all hoping that COVID will get a vaccine, it'll go away, and then Hampstead will come back with a vengeance in terms of activities. But in the meantime, we have to be good and we have to try not to spread COVID. Okay, that brings us to, let me see, Councillor Edery and Finance.
Okay, so month-end report. So we've got a 1.96 million refinancing coming up in February of our debt. $597,000 is going to be, instead of refinance, we're going to be paying that down, accelerated. Provincial government has placed a moratorium on sales for non-payment of property taxes, which is not something that we do anyways, or we are legally required to do, but we haven't done, at least not in the last 11 years since I've been here. The town beautification audit, which was asked about previously, is currently underway. It's from 2017 to 2020. It's not an investigation. An investigation has kind of a pejorative sound to it. It's an audit, and we're looking at how the department and how everything is run, and so our external auditors are doing that. And I guess if anybody's curious, I guess I am the guy with the obnoxious email, actionable and obnoxious email. With regards to the park fund, we're currently at 1.14 million, and we're expecting, we've got another 500,000 in the pipeline. So that's pretty solid. We need to be able to deploy that because we can only use that on the parks. One problem that we're facing is the year-to-date transfer tax is 69% of last year's year-to-date transfer taxes. So we budgeted 1.69 million in transfer taxes. If we continue with this trend and we've got like a 30% decrease in transfer taxes, we're looking at a $500,000 drop in revenue from our budget. But looking at all the other expenses that we have, our expenses are much lower because of COVID-19. So I'm fully confident that we can absorb that 500,000. Although it's not going to be good, we can absorb it anyways. We won't know until sometime a couple of months after the year end when all the revenue stops coming in from transfer taxes. So that's about it with regards to finance.
Thank you. Moving on, we have Councillor Budning, who will tell us about urban planning.
I think you skipped over myself, Mr. Mayor.
Whoops, okay, sorry. I'm just going in the order of the reports, but we can do Councillor Goldwags on Public Works.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and welcome everyone, and thank you everyone for joining us. A couple of things on my Public Works report. One of my portfolios, Public Works, I just want to give you an update. The company Eurovia has completed all the rehab and repaving of the streets in the neighborhood in the Hampstead. Kojalac, which is a sidewalk, the company mandated to repair sidewalk, has finished everything, and they finished everything on or just or about before the high holidays, so we're really appreciative of their work. Due to COVID-related issues, I will say that despite having all the protection possible, and unfortunately it does happen, one employee did test positive for COVID, and of course that puts another 7 that were sent home to quarantine. That of course puts a manpower juggling act that our chief operations and our public works director and our foreman had to do to get everyone working and making sure that our services do not stop for the town. Council approved the purchase of new tractors for the winter season for sidewalk clearing. And we are also looking at reviewing the possible purchase of a 3rd grader, a used snow removal grader for September-October timeframe. So we'll be readily available to add it to our fleet for winter months coming up. Of course, as I talked about COVID, Public Works altered its schedule to ensure that we have social distancing with the staff, the Public Works Blues, and everyone else. So we work on a 7-day work schedule, 18 hours a day, in order to maintain safety protocols in the fight against COVID. Of course, as the second wave begins, we're doing our utmost to contain contamination. Concerning COVID, as the mayor has talked about the fact that I run the Waldorf residence, I just cannot reiterate, we are in our second wave and we are code red, which I predicted we would be by October 1st. We cannot say enough to follow the main rules of washing hands, social distancing, wearing masks, and not gathering in order to prevent this from spreading. It is not spreading to just seniors, it's spreading to youth, it's spreading to middle age, it's spreading everywhere, and everyone has a part to do to keep everyone healthy. For the town of Hampstead, on September 21st, we had 72 cases, and we're now at 87 cases. That's 21% in 2 weeks. And I can only see the numbers growing exponentially over the next several weeks. So I'm asking everyone to do their part to protect themselves and protect the ones that they love. Lastly, on one of my portfolios is the IT and the report submitted by our director of IT, Thierry, who is basically a one-man show who is the general, the soldier, and the logistics planning all in one. And we suffered a major crash in August, but due to his quick action and all the hardware, software, and the devices that were installed on our mainframes and servers and cloud, we suffered no loss of data, and no confidential or information about residents was leaked or transmitted or held hostage. So my hat's off to Thierry for his excellent work and his devotion to this portfolio. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I'm asking everyone to stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldwax. And before we move on to the next one, I want to reiterate again, we do have to be careful. There is a second wave in terms of the statistics for Hampstead. I'm not sure of the absolute latest numbers, but I will assume that Councillor Goldwax is right with 87 cases. What I do know is that Hampstead, out of 33 demerged suburbs and boroughs, we are the 6th lowest in terms of number of cases, and most of the other lower ones are all on the West Island, far from downtown. We're extremely low for a suburb that is actually quite close to downtown. So we're not doing badly. The cases come. But you can't stop it. I mean, people don't just live in Hampstead, they move around. And when you move around, you're going to come into other people who, some of whom are infected. And if you are not taking all the necessary precautions, you'll get infected. It's as simple as that. I also wanted to mention with respect to our worker who got COVID, he got it from his daughter. And since we've kept people isolated in separate groups, they infected 6 other people, all of whom tested negative, and the original worker who never had symptoms is also back at work. Everybody's back at work. We're fully staffed, but we are continuing to make sure that all our staff are doing separate shifts as much as possible, being as cautious as possible to prevent any more little outbreaks. Okay, Councillor Budning, with respect to urban planning and anything else.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I mean, I won't, continue. I guess I should say I just wanted to reiterate. I won't go on a prolonged diatribe on what everyone just said, but certainly, especially directed towards my age demographics, millennials, Generation Z, and so forth, to certainly take into consideration the impacts of your decisions on other generations as well as yourself. So certainly, I encourage everyone to stay as physically and socially distant as possible, and to do the right thing, and hopefully we'll get through this together. Speaking of Generation Z, I also just want to throw a quick shout out to Jamie Fabian, who is our new school board commissioner, who was elected last week. He's 20 years old, and he'll be representing Hampstead and Côte-Saint-Luc for the English Montreal School Board. So congratulations to him, and it's great to see other young people getting involved and pursuing their passions in politics. Councillor Goldwax certainly talked about our IT guru, Terry, and the major system crash that we had. I certainly understand a lot about computers and how these things work, but I can tell you that in the 4-page report that we received detailing it, I've never seen more abbreviations and words I did not understand. So kudos to Terry and the ability to hold everything together and to ensure, most importantly, that we're able to continue functioning and that residents didn't feel the impact of the downtime. Specifically, all of our employees were able to deal with all the issues that residents had, and were able to upkeep services, which is certainly most important. With regards to my Hampstead, there were 1,595 accounts created so far. And as I do every month, I encourage residents to make an account so that you can apply for permits online, fill out information, apply for dog permits. Hopefully in the near future, we'll have applications for construction permits, as well as overnight parking passes and registered vehicles and so forth. We also encourage residents to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, where we publish information related to ongoing information on the city, news, and so forth. Very quickly, with regards to urban planning, As everybody knows, it's been a very busy season so far in 2020, and it's nice to see that homeowners are reinvesting in their properties and in our community, and they're planning on staying for a while. So far this month, for September 2020, 64 permits were issued for a total value of about $2.3 million of work. The value in permits from a monetary standpoint to the town was about $30,000 in permitting revenue. Year to date, 325 permits were issued for residents in the town for about $15.8 million of work. The town's collected about $165,000 in permitting revenue so far. This past month of September, 78 inspections were carried out by our team and 5 infractions were issued. As we go into the season, more inspections later into the season, more inspections are going to be carried out, especially with all these major projects. Throughout the coming months, the Urban Planning Department is going to catch up on a lot of the backlogged work. And that being said, I'd like to welcome our new employee in the Urban Planning Division, who will be hopefully approved this evening, Jamie, who I believe worked for the town last year as a stagiaire and is back full time to assist our Urban Planning Department and pick up some slack, as it's been a very, very busy season. So all things considering, I hope everybody stays safe. I hope everyone had happy holidays. And once again, all the best, and our sincere condolences to Anthony Housefather and his family on the passing of his father. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Schaefer on, public security and legal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I too would like to offer my condolences to our Member of Parliament, Anthony Housefather, on the passing of his father. Also, I would like to echo the comments of my fellow councillors about the present situation with Montreal being part of Code Red. I urge everyone to wear their mask, observe social distancing, and stay safe. Of the 2 portfolios that I handle, I'll deal with firstly the report of our clerk, Maitre Pierre Tapp, for whom I thank for preparing his report, which reads as follows. During this period, we had 1 assembly of the Municipal Council on August 3rd. The council meeting was held virtually. During a week of vacation for the town clerk, the assistant town clerk, Mrs. Simona Sonnenworth, was present during the council meeting of September. Most of the clerk's work was done from his home office, except for a few days which took place at town hall. The town clerk was always available to respond to requests from the various services of the municipality, whether by email, web conference call, or direct calls. More particularly, he has been in daily contact with the head of our urban planning section to resolve various situations requiring his expertise on a day-to-day basis. Maitre Tapp worked in collaboration on the development of the agenda for all August council meeting and its follow-up. He followed the development of government guidelines on the coronavirus crisis daily. He still discusses with different clerks from other towns regarding this delicate situation, and he is in contact with the clerks of other cities and share important logistics information with them. The town clerk represented the town of Hampstead during a virtual meeting with the town clerks of other towns. The town clerk has the privilege of having been appointed as a member of a selection committee of the Union of Quebec Municipalities for the choice of consultants and risk managers in damage insurance. The court being in slow motion as for the past few months, the majority of our litigation files have not changed at all. We are in constant contact with our lawyers on these different cases, and that is our report on legal. As for public security, I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of our council and the mayor to offer and look forward to a speedy recovery to our Chief Operations Officer, Mike Fitzgerald, who's still not back at work. And in his stead, Lieutenant Brent Roberts has prepared for me his report on public security, which I will read. I want to thank Brent Roberts for the report. And he stated, the department continues to function well amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. One auxiliary officer is on CNESST after having slipped and hurt his ankle while on ship. One permanent officer continues short-term medical for non-life-threatening illness. As I said, Chief Fitzgerald remains on sick leave. Morale is good and the team is functioning well. new Ford patrol vehicle, which will be a hybrid vehicle, the first for Hampstead and one of the first for public security vehicles on the island of Montreal, is in the process of having the lights, sirens, and storage box installed. Operational, the officers will be doing extra hours to increase presence during the high holy days, which was done. And I wish to personally, and as well as on behalf of the council and the mayor, to commend our Brent Roberts and his entire team for a fantastic job protecting our citizens who are attending various services in either tents or in synagogue buildings. A very, very fine job done by all. Security measures such as the Jersey barricades have been delivered and are in place. The department continues to adjust its procedures to follow the ever-evolving provincial COVID-19 regulations. The highlights of the month are as follows. Public security team members responded to a seriously injured man who fell from a bike on Côte St. Luc Road. They were able to provide first aid until the ambulance arrived and took the man to hospital. Public security team members continue to be vigilant and issue fines with a high number of construction projects in town. Security preparations for the high holidays were well done, with Jersey barricades delivered and installed in all important areas. Increased hours for officers, as well as constant communication with religious institutions regarding their planned events. And that is the report of public security. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schaefer, and I think we've covered just about everything, so we'll move on to item 5.0, adoption of the minutes on motion of Councillor
Goldwax.
Schaefer.
Seconded by Councillor Schaefer. It is resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 8th, 2020 are hereby approved as submitted. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's adopted. Brings us to, just give me a second. Did I miss something? Sorry. Six point one. Okay, 6.1 on motion of Councillor
Schaefer.
Schaefer, seconded by Councillor Goldwax. It is resolved that Mr. Mario Deschênes be authorized to produce the action plan for and on behalf of the town of Hampstead, and this with the approval of the final documents by the Director General. That the town of Hampstead asks the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing that the Montreal Regional Office support the designated person responsible for the action plan for the development and implementation of it. Anyone opposed? Okay, that is adopted. Which brings us to, oops. Sorry, I'll find it.
7.1. Bylaw number 1001-5, modifying zoning bylaw 1001-2.
Yes, indeed. So, on motion of Councillor
Goldwax.
Goldwax, second by Councillor Schaefer, I think.
Yes.
It is resolved to approve bylaw number 1001-5, modifying bylaw number 1001-2 regarding zoning. Anyone opposed? No. So that's adopted.
Just so residents are aware, that's in regards to the generators that was discussed at the previous two meetings.
Yes, and we're doing exactly what was suggested, which is we're not putting any limit on the power output of generators, but they are subject to our nuisance bylaw, which puts a limit of 65 decibels on how loud they can be. Okay, it brings us to 7.2. It's a notice of motion of draft bylaw number 1025, bylaw on the remuneration of, would someone like to move that we defer 7.2?
Goldwax.
Yeah.
I think I heard Councillor Goldwax, seconded by Councillor Schaefer, that we defer this item. Anyone opposed? Okay, so we are deferring 7.2. It will presumably come back at our next meeting.
And 7.3.
7.3.
Yes.
Yes, it's basically the same idea. So would someone like to move that we defer 7.3?
Goldwax.
Okay, I think that was Councillor Schaefer, seconded by Councillor Goldwax. Anyone opposed? Okay, so 7.2 to 7.3, basically the same thing, being deferred till a subsequent meeting, probably the next meeting. And that brings us to, I've gone a little too far.
8.1.
8.1. I'll just announce each member of council having received copies. The town clerk deposits minutes of the regular planning advisory committee meeting held on September 14th, 2020, and the special PAC meeting held on September 29th, 2020. The council takes note of the deposit of said minutes by the town clerk. Okay, and that brings us to, should be 8.2, I'm guessing. Whoops, here it is. 8.2. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Goldwax.
Seconded by Councillor Goldwax, it is resolved that the construction of a new detached single-family dwelling located at 30 Granville Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is refused. As recommended by the PAC, the construction only partially meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Okay. That brings us to (8.3) concerning 149 Finchley Road. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Goldwax.
Okay. Motion of Councillor Budning, seconded by Councillor Goldwax. It is resolved that the modifications to the facades of a detached single-family dwelling located at 149 Finchley Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is approved as recommended by the PAC. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Nope. That brings us to, whoops, 8.4. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Budning, seconded by Councillor
Goldwax.
It is resolved that the modification to the front facade of a detached single-family dwelling located at 20 Belsize Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is deferred as recommended by the PAC. The construction meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? No. So we're going on to 8.5. Oops, here we are. 8.5 concerning 5616 Queen Mary Road. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Goldwax.
Second by Councillor Goldwax, it is resolved that the addition in the rear yard to a semi-detached single-family dwelling located at 5616 Queen Mary Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is approved as recommended by the PAC. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? That's adopted, which will bring us to 8.6. Okay, 8.6 is 9 Harlan Place. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Goldwax.
Seconded by Councillor Goldwax, it's resolved that the modifications to the rear facade of a detached single-family dwelling located at 9 Harlan Place and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is approved As recommended by the PAC, the proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Okay, that should bring us to 8.7. 8.7. Concerning 51 Thurlow Road. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Goldwax.
Seconded by Councillor Goldwax, it is resolved that the authorization for an addition in the left and right yard to a semi-detached single-family dwelling located at 51 Thurlow Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is refused as recommended by the PAC. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anybody opposed? No. So that brings us to 8.8. Oops. I'm having trouble finding 8.8.
49 Holtham.
49 Holtham Road.
Well, I know it's 49 Holtham Road, but I don't see the resolution.
It's on page, you actually have it as 8.8A. It's on page 244.
244. Okay.
Michael, do you want to read the resolution?
No, it's okay.
Well, the thing is, what we only have is 8.8A. We're actually missing the page with the resolution. But it's a request to authorize an addition to a detached single family located at 49 Holtham Road, lot number 2090049, zone RA2, bylaw 1001-2 and SPAP bylaw 775, whereas proposed project meets the prescribed standard regarding zoning bylaw. Whereas the proposed project does not meet the prescribed standards regarding the site planning architectural committee bylaw 775.
So then it was proposed by
Okay, so then on motion of Councillor
Budning.
Budning, second by Councillor
Goldwax.
Goldwax, it is resolved that the town council refuses the request for the addition of the property located at 49 Holtham Road. Anyone opposed? Okay. Nobody opposed, and sorry, but we were missing the actual resolution. But I thank you guys for winging it very, very well.
No problem.
All right, so that will bring us to
8.9.
8.9. Oh, what is this?
So 6.
Actually, the resolution is actually here at the end, but okay, we've done it. So now we'll move to 8.9. It's concerned 6060 McDonald Road. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Budning, seconded by Councillor
Goldwax.
Goldwax, it is resolved that the authorization for an addition in the rear yard of a semi-detached bi-family dwelling located at 6060 McDonald Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is deferred as recommended by the PAC. The construction meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? No. Okay.
No opposal. I just want to correct you one thing. The resolution you saw at the end of the project of 49 Holtham, the last page, was just for the minor exemption last year that was approved to them. That was from 2019. That wasn't actually a resolution for now. That was on page 265 that you're referring to, but it's not for this year's resolution.
Okay, I admit I did not read it.
I read it.
Yeah. Okay. At any rate, we did pass the necessary resolution, so I think it's legal. And we get to 8.10 concerning 28 Belsize Road. This is a minor exemption request to legalize an existing condition so they can sell their house. I believe there are no interested parties that submitted anything about this. Is that correct?
No intervention. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So, on motion of Councillor
Budning.
Budning, seconded by Councillor
Goldwax.
Goldwax, is resolved that the minor exemption to the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 for detached single-family dwelling located 28 Belsize Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is approved as recommended by the PAC. The construction partially meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? No, so that will bring us to 8.11. And this one concerns 24 Granville Road. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Goldwax.
seconded by Councillor Goldwax, it is resolved that the authorization for facade modifications in the rear yard of a detached single-family dwelling located 24 Granville Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is approved as recommended by the PAC. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Okay, nobody opposed. Brings us to 8.12. The minor
Derogations. Yeah.
No intervention, Mr. Mayor.
No interventions related to 3 Barons Court Road. On motion of Councillor
Budning.
Budning, seconded by Councillor
Schaefer.
Goldwax. Okay.
Schaefer. It is resolved that the minor exemptions to the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 for detached single-family dwelling located 3 Barons Court Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 29, 2020 is approved as recommended by the PAC. The construction partially meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's adopted, and that brings us to
8.13.
8.13 for Albion.
No intervention.
It's a minor exemption, no interventions. So, on motion of Councillor
Budning.
Budning, seconded by Councillor
Goldwax.
Goldwax, it is resolved that the minor exemption to the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 for a detached single-family dwelling located at 4 Albion Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 29, 2020 is approved as recommended by the PAC. The construction partially meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? No, so that's adopted. It brings us to 8.14, I guess. Here it is. Concerns 5697 Queen Mary Road. On motion of Councillor
Goldwax. Goldwax.
Seconded by Councillor Goldwax. It is resolved that the authorization for the addition to the rear facade of a detached single-family dwelling located at 5697 Queen Mary Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 14, 2020 is conditionally approved as recommended by the PAC, provided that the windows of the second floor must be wider and better centered with the ground floor windows, and provided that the right side portion of the roof in the rear elevation must be modified to match the design of the left side roof. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's adopted. And I'm not sure if we have any more urban planning ones.
8.15, 32 Aldred Crescent.
Okay. You guys go faster than I do. Let me just get there. 8.15. Whoops, here it is. 8.15, 32 Aldred Crescent. On motion of Councillor
Budnu.
Budning, seconded by Councillor
Schaefer.
Schaefer. It is resolved that the authorization for modifications to the front porch of a semi-detached single-family dwelling located at 32 Alders Crescent and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 29, 2020 is deferred as recommended by the PAC. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? No, and that should bring us to 8.16. Oops. 8.16 is 98 Thurlow Road. And on motion of Councillor
Budnu.
Goldwax.
Budning, seconded by Councillor Goldbach, it is resolved that the authorization for an addition in the rear yard to a detached single-family dwelling located at 98 Thurlow Road and submitted to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting on September 29, 2020 is conditionally approved as recommended by the PAC, provided that the proposed masonry on the corners of the walls should be avoided, and well-designed architectural elements should be added to the left side roof. Wood molding should be added to match the front facade. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's adopted, which brings us to
817.
I know we still have another one. All right, where is it? 8.17, 267 Netherwood Crescent. Okay, I have to explain something here. Okay, I have to explain that the councillors discussed this project before the meeting, and where the motion we're making refers to the latest plans for the project that were submitted by email to the council and to our head of urban planning, Mario Deschênes. They were submitted at about 5:30 this evening, 5 o'clock, 5:30. Those are the plans, and only those plans are the ones we're referring to over here. So, on motion of Councillor
Edery.
Goldwax.
Second by Councillor. Okay. On motion of Councillor Edery, seconded by Councillor Goldwax, it is resolved that the authorization for modifications to the front porch of a detached single-family dwelling located at 267 Netherwood Crescent and submitted to the Planning Advisory and submitted to the council this evening around 5 or 5:30 are approved, notwithstanding the recommendation of the PAC to defer this item. The proposed project meets the prescribed standards of the zoning bylaw number 1001-2 and only partially meets the prescribed standards of the site planning and architectural integration program bylaw number 775. Anyone opposed? Okay, no one's opposed, and I want to explain this. It's a little unusual. What happened here is the architect and the owner submitted new plans which take into consideration the concerns that the PAC had. The council has decided, rather than waiting for the PAC to look at these new plans, we are going to take it on ourselves, because we have the ultimate responsibility to approve the new plans, because we believe that they have addressed the issues of the PAC at least sufficiently. So that's why this one has been adopted. And that brings us to, move on, brings us
9.1.
Finance.
9.1. Before I go on to 9.1, I just want to say we had an awful lot of urban planning files to deal with. I want to thank our urban planning staff, our members of the Planning and Architectural Committee. We actually had to have 2 meetings in order to go through all these various files. And our members of the PAC are very diligent and took a lot of time and analyzed everything to the extent necessary. And consequently, with the 2 long meetings, we were able to cover all this material. So I thank them all very much for that. 9.1 approval of disbursements on motion of Councillor
Edery.
Schaefer,
Goldwax.
Motion of Councillor Edery, seconded by Councillor Schaefer, first name I heard. It is
Yeah.
resolved that the disbursements for the period from August 16, 2020 to September 15, 2020 in the total amount of $1,672,646.62 are hereby approved. Anyone opposed? No. So that brings us to, I think, 11.1, which is approval hiring a resolution on motion of Councillor
Schaefer,
Goldwax.
Schaefer, seconded by Councillor Goldwax. It is resolved to approve the temporary hiring of Mr. James Carignan as building inspector, subject to the usual conditions and in accordance with the provisions of the collective agreement between QP Local 429 and the Town of Hampstead. Anyone opposed? Good, nobody's opposed. I think he's already started work. In fact, I know he started work, so that's good. That brings us to 11.2. On motion of Councillor
Schaefer,
Goldwax.
Schaefer, seconded by Councillor Goldwax, is resolved to approve the extension of the contractual hiring of Mr. Farouk Nimeh as foreman until November 13, 2020, in accordance with the conditions described in the contract signed on April 22nd, 2020 between Mr. Nimeh and the town as represented by the Director General and contained in the confidential personnel file of the Human Resource Director's Office. And that brings us to 11.3, another temporary hiring.
Goldwax.
Schaefer,
A motion of Councillor Goldwax, seconded by Councillor Schaefer. It is resolved to approve the temporary hiring of Ms. Avianne Lewis Morris as temporary office agent within the Public Works Department for a period not to exceed 6 months starting October 12, 2020, subject to the usual conditions and in accordance with the provisions of the collective agreement between QP Local 429 and the Town of Hampstead. And that covers most of the items, but at this point, I think we get to either, there it is, other business. Any councillors who have any other business? Okay, no. So that brings us to the second question period, and I do have a few questions here. So the first one, anonymous, continuing from before, I guess. The question was, how much does the flower project cost the town in total per year? And the answer is, there's no way to answer that. The amounts vary every single year. What I can tell you, however, is that all the major work, when we redo an entire new park, like Councillors Park, Aldred Park, Applewood Park, and so on, when a whole new park is redone, that money comes from the park fund. We are far from exhausting the park fund. Park fund is bumped up every time someone demolishes a house, and currently it has excess of $1 million. So we have lots of money for lots of additional parks. The park fund money is also used for playground equipment, the ping pong table we put in, all these different improvements to our parks. So as long as people are going to keep demolishing houses, we have lots and lots of money for that. It doesn't come out of the operating budget. Now, what does come out of the operating budget is the annual cost and the labor cost. And the key thing I want to mention over there is that as we have moved more and more to perennials and less to annuals, the cost for annuals has dropped dramatically. I think it's about 25% of what it was once upon a time. That doesn't mean the overall budget has dropped by any amount like that, and it hasn't, because as we keep doing new stuff, there's more new stuff that has to be, I mean, always when you do perennials, there's going to be some that die, you have to be replaced the next year and so on. But in the long run, things will either stabilize or go down. They may already be going down. I simply don't have the numbers. But I think based on the comments I get from numerous, and I mean really numerous residents on how much they like the beautification of the town. I mean, when my wife and I are walking around, people are coming up to us all the time, and they're usually not talking to me, they're talking to my wife. That's who they want to talk about, and they want to say how much they appreciate what she's done. So that's very gratifying for everybody. Moving on, Anonymous is back again with another question. Above ground pools are not permitted in the towns of our ranking, such as Westmount TMR. Does Hampstead allow above ground pools? I'm not actually sure if that's true that they're not allowed in the other towns, but this was discussed by the council and caucus in private. And our opinion was that, well, they are allowed, and our opinion was that we wanted to keep that to be the case. Above ground pools are, of course, less expensive than in-ground pools, and we didn't want to we didn't want to deny people who couldn't afford a in-ground pool the option of having an above-ground pool where they could cool off, where the kids could have fun and so on. So that is the decision that we took. So they were allowed before, they are still allowed today, and after with COVID this year, I'm really happy that we have allowed them, and a lot of people have been putting in pools this year, some above ground, some in ground. Jeremy Levi, why was 7.2 and 7.3 deferred? I can't go into that in a huge amount of detail, but the short answer is the council wanted additional information before we're ready to approve or not that particular resolution. We have asked our Director General, Richard Sun, to get us the additional information that we want before the next meeting. So hopefully we will have that before our next meeting and we'll be able to make a decision. Okay. There's a note here. I don't think it's a question, it's just a note. I will acknowledge it. He knows who he is. Okay, so I believe that covers everything we have to cover. I will mention that that there were complaints about not starting on time in the past, not today, because we did start on time. But it's certainly our intention to start on time. We're going to try very hard to do that, but I cannot guarantee it will happen all the time. It all depends. If we have to discuss certain issues and they can't be put off to our post-caucus meeting, then we sometimes have to start late. But we're going to try really hard not to do that anymore. And now we're going to adjourn this meeting, and then the councillors are going back into our post-caucus meeting so we can finish up some additional items. I thank everybody for attending remotely, and at this point, I will ask if someone wants to move adjournment.
Goldwax.
Councillor Schaefer, seconded by Councillor Goldwax. Anyone opposed? No. So we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Stay safe.